Hello, I'm Edward Tarte, once a Catholic priest for 5 years, now an atheist, which simply means I find no credible evidence for the existence of any God. In this video, I am going to describe my transition out of the priesthood. I actually left the priesthood in May 1968. Leading up to that event, for several months, I was living a strange priestly life, living on the edge. 2.5 years earlier, as an assistant priest in an affluent part of Houston, Texas, I attended a retreat for priests in Oklahoma. There I heard talks by a priest and a Catholic college professor that were actually very critical of the Catholic Church and its strict authority over its members. These talks stirred my thoughts. They had a lot to do with my eventual departure from the priesthood and from the Catholic Church. At that parish in suburban Houston, my fellow assistant priest and I had much free time on our hands, so we both accepted requests to give priestly talks and do other interesting priestly things outside our parish. That greatly angered our pastor. He complained to the bishop, and accordingly the bishop transferred both of us. He transferred me to a parish in downtown Houston, where the pastor was very traditional, very conservative, but also very congenial, permissive, and intent on avoiding controversy no matter what. In that respect, I was extremely fortunate. I had obtained reel-to-reel tape recordings of the talks that had been given at that retreat in Oklahoma, and I had the latest technology, a reel-to-reel tape recorder with speakers. A lady from my former parish organized evening meetings of typically a dozen or so Catholics in her home and in other homes. At those meetings, I would come, just telling my pastor that I needed to be gone for the evening. We would eat a meal together. Then I would play one of the tapes critical of the Catholic Church, and we would discuss it. We had dozens of these meetings, spanning several months. Meanwhile, I was teaching religion in a high school for girls adjacent to the church. I introduced some of these critical ideas into my teaching. I also started introducing some of the ideas into my Sunday sermons. On one of those occasions, another priest of the parish turned off my microphone during my sermon, so that I had to practically shout the rest of my sermon. At lunch that day, I asked him if he had done that, and he said yes. And he said, "Just preach about angels and topics like that." I felt such hostility toward that priest that I ate some of my meals privately in my upstairs room, which was probably not a good thing to do. My faith was gradually crumbling and giving way to my brain and reason, and I was trying with variable success to match my actions with my state of mind. I was assigned to make visits every few days to a downtown hospital, and I felt increasingly uncomfortable in that role as a Catholic hospital chaplain. On one occasion, a young lady came to our priest's residence and asked me if I would give her private lessons about the Catholic Church because she wanted to become a Catholic. I told her that I honestly could not recommend that she or anybody become a Catholic. What a horrible thing for a Catholic priest to say. And since no other priest at that church chose to give such lessons, the young lady had to go somewhere else. During that winter of 1968, I realized that my days as a priest were numbered and that I would need to be able to support myself. Since I had a college degree in math and liked teaching, it was clear to me that I should try to become a math teacher. I looked around for jobs. I found such a job opening at a private school in Richmond, Virginia. That school was willing to pay my round-trip airfare. My pastor easily granted me the time off. I did not tell him where I was going. I flew to Richmond and had a job interview, but they did not hire me because they wanted a math teacher who could also be an athletic coach, something that I could not do. I applied to be a part-time announcer at Houston's classical music station. They gave me an audition, but did not hire me. I got a job as a newspaper carrier. For a couple of months, I went to bed early, got up before sunrise while the other priests were asleep, drove 6 miles to suburban Houston, and delivered papers at an apartment complex. If the pastor was aware that anything unusual was going on, he never said a word to me about it. In May 1968, I decided I had lived on the edge long enough. It was time to leave. I told my pastor. He immediately and kindly relieved me of the duty of saying Mass and hired another priest to come in and say my scheduled Masses. I notified my bishop in writing. My bishop gave me $100 severance pay. Within 2 or 3 days, I was out of there. I moved to an apartment that was actually in my former parish in suburban Houston. Living there that summer, I continued to deliver newspapers, and I spent much of the summer applying for a teaching position at about a dozen public school districts in that area. Late in the summer, one of them hired me. So that September, I moved to an apartment on the other side of Houston and began 17 years as a middle school math teacher, to be followed by 20 years in another school district as a high school math teacher, to be followed by my present status as a self-employed private math tutor. And what is the attitude of the Catholic Church toward all this? Because I left the priesthood and the Catholic Church, nothing that I have done in the past 43 years is of any value in the sight of God, and I am going to burn in hell. More about that in an upcoming video. Thank you for watching this video.